Hello everyone, and welcome to the Journey Success Stories podcast. I'm Jennifer Shuffle, your host, and today I am with Dennis Devlin. He is the CEO for Clarity Research and Strategy. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good to be here.
So, thank you. So, today we are going to be talking about his business, what that journey to business ownership has looked like for him, as well as challenges that he's had along the way, and of course, those wonderful best practices, so that then we can really get a feel for what is that journey really look like, because everybody's is a little bit different, and he's going to share a sneak peek into it. So if this is your first time to the channel, definitely like and subscribe because we want you to get notifications when we have any conversations like this one drop in the future. So of course, Dennis, welcome to the show. Please tell us about your background, who you are, and how did Clarity come about?
Sure. So, so Clarity Research and Strategy is a marketing and branding research and strategy firm. I've been in that industry, that industry space for my entire career. I started the business in October of 2009, so I'm finishing up my 16th year running the business. It came out of a need. So at the time, we're talking now back to November of 2008, um, where the Great Recession had begun, and you would see in the news about large corporations laying off tens of thousands of people at a time. Um, I was part of a fourth layoff from a company um, in November. So, at that point, they're not just getting rid of marginal employees, they're digging deep. Um, and so it's part of a fourth layoff. And um, I was working for a company that was supporting Procter and Gamble work. And so I was working on brands like Pampers and Charmin and Bounty, and then I also was involved in another part of the business, which was called Strategy to Scale at the time, where Procter Gamble would put together multiple brands for consumer solutions. Um, and I actually had done well despite despite the layoff. And so a lot of other companies that were in the research space that were supporting Procter and Gamble work were interested in speaking with me. But as it turns out, I learned later that they just hadn't begun their layoffs. The Great Recession was challenging. Um, and so from November till about the summer of 2009, I was trying to get another role at another company, and it just wasn't happening. I think I was looking for sort of the proverbial needle in a haystack at that time. With so many people out of work, um, there just weren't too many companies that were hiring at that point. There was so much uncertainty with the economy, and so I kind of pivoted in how I thought about sort of the job search and recognized that if there wasn't any openings, I better develop something for myself to move forward. You have to pay the bills at some point. And so that's why I started thinking about, okay, well, what if I created, a business, unlike a lot of people who start businesses, I think they might want to go into the research, like the restaurant industry, but they may not have ever had any experience in the restaurant industry, and so they're kind of almost destined to fail. I was going to utilize and leverage the experience I had working in the research and strategy space, and so I was like, okay, what's that going to look like? And so for a few months there, from the summer until I launched on October 1st in 2009, I was really developing what the business would be about. How was I going to differentiate in the marketplace? How was I going to just get some clients, get some business? So um, it was born out of a need in a very difficult economic climate. Um,
Mhm.
and um, I've had, I definitely have had obviously an additional challenge with the economy, with the global pandemic, since then. So I feel like I'm battle tested. If I can go through a Great Recession and a global pandemic and still be here,
Yeah.
kicking, um, I've hopefully accomplished something in the process.
Yeah. So, Dennis, you had mentioned that you were asking yourself some questions about what's going to set you apart from others. What were some of those questions that you were asking yourself? And please share with us what does differentiate you from others?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I think it's very important to try to find ways to be different, because you don't want to be just another another same as, in the market. Um,
Right.
it's hard be to stand out when you take that kind of approach. So I think you got to be really conscious about it, um, and say, particularly when you're starting the business, to a great extent, you are the business and the business is you. And we are all unique in some way, shape, or form. And it's about recognizing what is it about you that's unique and different that can create value for those you serve. And so I thought about, when I started the business, what do I really feel like I focus on effectively in serving my clients? And it's that, I think for me, I put it right in the name of the business. I think it's really about being clear, and that's why the business I call the business clarity, and have doubled down over time about that. It's the ultimate outcome of what I deliver to clients is clarity, right? It's clarity about understanding your customers. It's clarity about understanding your competition. It's clarity about understanding how to effectively position your business in the marketplace to be successful. It's just that determined, persistent focus on clarity in terms of how I serve my clients. And so I look for every interaction to try to create value through clarity. That's how I feel like I differentiate the business, utilizing obviously the years of experience that I've had in the industry.
Yeah. So, one of the other things you had mentioned is the pandemic. You may have had to do a shift with the business.
I
Can you
did.
please share with everyone what that was and what you went through?
And so, going into the pandemic, I wish I had a crystal ball because I would have probably had done some different things if I had known what was coming. So a lot of the work that I was doing before the pandemic hit
Mhm.
was working in the restaurant industry and retail industry. Um, a good portion of the business was focused there, and hopefully your listeners, you know, um, recognize that those are two industry sectors that were struggling mightily,
Lot.
during the pandemic, and many of them went out of business. So I had, a real challenge, with getting invoices paid. That was challenging, no doubt, and just a struggle because so many other businesses in other industries were just holding back on moving forward in terms of spending. So, I think out of fear of how long this global pandemic would last, they just held on to their funds. And one of the first things I think in the marketing space that happens is cutting out research, because research is typically something that is like when we're looking to move forward, we're going to invest in research to learn more, to be more effective in our marketing and branding efforts. We're going to hold back on that and just use intuition and guesswork and whatever else they might utilize without making any spend. Um, so it was very challenging to get through that period of time. I also, looked to find a way to take advantage of it as an opportunity to make a change. When I started the business, it was under the name Consumer Clarity, which suggested, I think to some, that all I did was consumer work. It was really meant to be a go-to-market strategy when I started the business, and um, but it wasn't reflective of all those I served. I do B2B work as well as B2C work, um, as well as working with nonprofits. So um, I felt like it was a good opportunity to make a rebrand, to do a rebrand, and I rebranded the business to Clarity Research and Strategy from Consumer Clarity in January of 2021, and that's made a big difference for the business because now people are that are in the B2B space are much more apt to make inquiries and request proposals for potential research work.
Interesting. Very cool. So you also had mentioned in the beginning, we may go into business wanting flexibility and all these grandiose ideas. And oh, what we do is buy ourselves another job. So tell
Yeah.
everyone how you've actually set yourself apart so that then as far as employees and what that looks like and people that you have as part of your team.
Yeah, I think we have to recognize that we're not going to be great at everything just ourselves. We need to leverage other people in terms of helping to make our business successful. And it's not trying to be dismissive of what our capabilities or potential might be. I think
Yeah.
it's just a recognition that we can't be great at everything. And there are other people that are suited to help us in areas maybe we're not as strong. And then we can then focus in areas that we do well in and we can even improve on. Um, so early on, I became involved in an entrepreneurial community locally that was helpful. The leader of that community um, had a franchising background, and she was utilizing and leveraging learning that she gained um, through working in that space and
Yeah.
applying it to entrepreneurs and small business owners. And it was very helpful to get a framework about how to think about a business because it's not just a job. um,
Right.
I mean, I think even if I was, fully transparent, I probably was just looking to fill a job initially, because I didn't fully recognize when I started business is something a little bit different than just replacing a job. Because my background, I knew freelancing was not going to work for me because of my background, my experience. I was used to doing kind of all the different pieces. I had very broad training over time early in my career. And so I wanted to just continue that when I started the business. Um, but I think we have to recognize that there's power in numbers. And I'm talking about it in a sense of people supporting you. I look to find ways that where I wasn't strong to get a support. So, I've utilized coaching extensively. I'm very coachable. I figure coaches probably know a lot better than more than I do. I think we have to be humble, uh,
Mm,
but I think it's for the right reason, right? I think it's about learning, growing, developing, becoming a better business owner. Um, so I've always believed in coaching, and I think that along with that is finding the right kinds of other support. Like I have a virtual assistant that helps me with my marketing effort. Um, and that's been extremely helpful because it's
yeah.
taken some of the things off my plate that I was doing that probably wasn't the best use of my time. Oftentimes, those aspects that my VA does is are things that are more time consuming. and kind
Mhm.
of get into the weeds a little bit. And I just don't think that's a great use of my time.
Right.
I'm more of a visionary. I'm more about making this go and working on the business as opposed to working sort of in the business. That's obviously something that probably a lot of people are familiar with those terms and what they mean. Um, and so it's taken, it takes a while to recognize, what you need support in and making sure that you have the right support.
Yes. So one of my favorite books that I talk to my clients a lot about is Who Not How. And I'm sure you've probably read it because it
Oh yeah.
is a fabulous book.
Yes.
And I know that you've worked with this group.
Yeah.
So
So
go ahead.
yeah. So Who Not How is co-authored by Dan Sullivan, who's the founder and leader of an organization called Strategic Coach. The other co-author is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Benjamin Hardy. They've actually, I think they wrote three different books together.
Yeah.
But I became involved in Strategic Coach. I'd kind of been following them on social media for a couple of years, and decided that I wanted to continue to build my business and have something of value, whether it's to sell the business when I was ready to retire or to have employees take it over at that time. Um, I wanted something that was continued to grow,
Right.
not just more exponentially than just small gains. Not like 2-3% increases in revenues per year, but rather 10 times that. And so, this strategic coach, excuse me, is a proven framework that they utilize, and they've been around for like 35 years. And so, I I really decided, and this is something that I would certainly encourage your listeners to take note of, and that is, I think one of the best investments we make are investments in ourselves. And
Yes.
I think when it comes to our business, my feeling has always been if I'm investing in myself and becoming a better business owner, a better leader, a better CEO, that's probably going to be a good investment because it's about having me fulfill more closely my potential in that role. And so I made a significant investment in becoming a member of that community and that program. I just started my second year in the program, and it's been incredibly positive experience. Um, as I said, big on coaching, and yeah, I think it's been tremendous being in the community um, and working with coaches in the strategic coach program. It is a
Yeah.
program that is run by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. And so the coaches themselves have their own successful businesses that they're operating, and they're
Right.
utilizing concepts. That a lot of what they refer to them as like thinking concepts, but it's framework of thinking that'll make you think differently
Mhm.
about the business in ways that help improve the business. Um,
Yeah.
so they talk about thinking tools, and they have hundreds of them. It's hard to keep up, quite frankly,
Yeah.
as they go
Well,
through.
and that is the beauty of being part of a coaching group is that community. Because even with Summit Action Coach, it's really cool because we pull together like different businesses. And now within that, they get together once a quarter and they even share services themselves. So they even leverage each other and have created that own community. So, yes, there's a huge gift that you get and you never even thought was going to be a part of it. So, my next question for you is what has the business allowed you to do that maybe was a hidden benefit that you had no idea you would gain by being a business owner?
So I think one of the areas that really off the top at the very beginning of being involved in strategic coach, they really focus on freedom, freedom of how you, freedom of money in terms of creating it, freedom of relationships, freedom of time. Um, you want to feel like you're really in control of your business and that the business is not controlling you. And
Right.
I think that there had been times, particularly early on in this journey of business ownership, where the business was really controlling me. And I think over time, you know, um, it's been a case where, with intent, you can provide yourself some of that freedom that really, I think, ultimately all entrepreneurs really are looking for, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to be tied to the day to day of your business. You can have others basically carrying it on. You take a trip overseas, for example.
Yeah.
Um, allowing for that. Spending more time with your kids or whatever it might be that you're looking to do, where you're
Yeah.
not working 24/7.
Yes.
Um, and actually you have a life outside the business. So one of the areas that is focused on in the initial year of being a strategic coach is all about what they call their entrepreneurial time system, which is breaking out by day how you really are focused each day. Is it a free day, what they call a free day, which is you are not doing anything related to your business, 24-hour
Hmm.
period where you're shut out from your business and you're just resting and relaxing and doing anything else you might want to do with that time. They have what they call focus days, which are days that you are clearly focused on really revenue generating aspects of your business to drive it forward. So, you're working with clients, you're working with prospects, um, things that are going to help generate revenue for the business. And then they have what they call buffer days, which are really related to like planning, talking to your team, doing things that help support more free days, help support more effective focus days. um, that's one of the foundational aspects is first of all, gaining control of your time, because once you gain control of your time, it opens up
Yes.
more opportunities, right? Um, and the second area they focus on is what they call unique ability. And so we talked briefly earlier about differentiation. And I think when you're the CEO or the leader of your business, um, you're probably best serving the business when you're working in what they call your unique ability, which are things that you are excellent at or extremely good at. um, and you should be spending more time doing those things and having other people do things where you're maybe not excellent at. Maybe you're not even competent at. When we
Right.
started the business early on, it was definitely doing everything, right? We do everything and anything. We don't want to spend any money on having any support at all. And we drive ourselves right into the ground in the process. Um,
Right.
but if we focus on what our unique ability is, and then we also bring in team members to work on their unique ability, where they're supporting you, the whole business becomes more effective as a result of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Dennis, where do you see clarity 10 years from now? So, you've arrived 10 years from now. What does clarity look like now?
Yeah, I have a much bigger vision of the business since I started as strategic coach.
Right.
Um, as I think I made a reference to earlier, I think when I first started the business, it was really a replacement for my old job. That was what I
Right.
I didn't have visions necessarily of making it particularly large or having employees. It was just about getting some work, having me able to pay the bills, etc., to replace what I had before. But as time has gone on and I've built some stability in running the business, because it has lasted up to this point, 16 years. Um, I think it's I think what I came to realize is how much more longer would I like to be running this business, and what do I want this business to look like in 10 years? And so I have a vision for the business to be larger, from an employee standpoint and from certainly a revenue and profit standpoint. I'd like it to be in a place where I can either sell it or have employees take it over. Um, what that looks like, I don't have to worry about for a few years. But really focused on exponential growth, through continuing to grow the business and develop it, in an exponential way.
Yeah. So, if you were to address maybe what would be the number one challenge or opportunity you would need to face in order to reach your goal 10 years from now?
Well, I think it starts with mindset, and that's really a big reason why I made the investment in Strategic Coach, because they really not only help you overcome the typical barriers that entrepreneurs
Right.
have, that basically we get in our own way a lot of the times for our own.
Yes.
We can't help ourselves to get in our own way. It clears that out, but beyond just doing that, it takes it much further with these, what they call thinking tools. So I made reference to earlier. It's all about expansive thinking and then
Mm.
acting on that. And I think that's important for people to realize when they're running a business is we tend to set up barriers for ourselves mentally that we can't do things. And the fact of the matter is, it's very possible to do these things. Um,
Mhm.
so I think there's intention around that. And it's intention about your mindset, having a positive focus, and then working beyond that. So you mentioned Who Not How, which is a book that really focuses on getting support so that you can work in your unique ability. I mean, in a very, I'm simple oversimplifying it perhaps, but that's the main point of the book is we actually grow and develop and become better at running our business when we recognize we need people, not how do I get this done? Who can do this for me to get it done
Right.
so that I can stay in my
Yes.
unique ability? But another of the three books that Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy written is The Gap and the Gain. And I encourage people to also read that book, um, because it's really about your mentality and how you view
Yes.
what you've been able to achieve. So many of us focus, and this is just like human nature, so you kind of have to fight human nature here a little bit. But uh, the gap is, what have I not been able to accomplish? We focus on a goal and how far we have to get there, and it sometimes seems overwhelming. And looking at it from the standpoint of where you were and how much you've been able to achieve is the gain that you've had over whatever period of time we're talking about.
Yes.
And the gap in the gain. Yeah. So we focus more on the gain. It helps us stay in a positive focus.
Right. Yeah.
And
Because
yeah,
positivity is what's going to drive you forward and make sure that you accomplish your goals. Because if you're just sitting negatively moping, you're not doing anything.
mhm,
And so the first thing we always start with is mindset. And we always remind clients that, hey, okay, great, this has happened. What are we going to do? How are we going to take accountability, ownership, and responsibility within this?
right, right.
Yeah. So you mentioned goals. And so I want to really dive into that a little bit. What has been your approach to goal setting? Like, what does that look like for you in the business?
Well, I think it's changed since I started with Strategic Coach. I think my framework, they really encourage you to think well beyond a year. They really think about this 25-year framework, which admittedly, may be beyond how much longer I work. but it's not entrepreneurs get into a little bit of a challenge in setting goals oftentimes because they don't they just often have unreasonable deadlines on those goals. Where if you set up 25 years, you've got plenty of time. They use a term or a concept in strategic coach called lifetime extender, which is how long could you possibly live? Obviously there's been a lot
Yeah.
of improvement in the health and medical field, right? We're living longer, but and oftentimes with a higher quality of life in our older age. And so they think about this idea about extending your life. And if you had extended your lifespan, and hopefully also your health span along the way, what could
Yeah.
that mean for the business, right? What could that mean for your life? And so thinking about it from a more of a 25-year framework of what you want to accomplish, it it's not an unreasonable goal that you're typically setting up. It's just been unreasonable deadlines for those goals. That we put a lot of
Mhm.
pressure on ourselves that are probably oftentimes unnecessary, and give ourselves some grace along the way. So I've really changed my viewpoint on goals, um, and I think for the better, because I think you're
Very true.
more likely to have that gain perspective as opposed to that gap perspective that we refer to a moment
Yes. Well, and 25 years from now, you don't get stuck on the how because you're thinking bigger because it's
ago.
just truly pie in the sky and money doesn't matter. And so you're truly thinking big, which is the whole concept of why you should set goals, set them far enough in advance, and then work backwards to make them more realistic, though, too.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple of rapid fire questions
Wow.
for you as we're
Okay.
starting to come to a close, unfortunately. So, what is the key to success for you?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'll go back to something I said earlier. I think investing in myself. And I think that every business owner should consider making those types of investments because that's where, when you grow as the leader of the business, your business grows as well, because you've increased capabilities, and skill sets and such. And so that's my first thing. I think, secondly, is being disciplined. You know,
Mhm.
um, running a business is challenging. It's one of the most challenging things I think I've probably ever done in my life. Um, and you have to be able to maintain some kind of even keel on your emotions, right? The highs are
Yes.
great, but the lows not so great. And so, I try to maintain kind of an even keel, whether it's things are going great or things are not going well at all. But I think just being disciplined about the activity,
Mm.
because you're playing the long game, not a short game, and recognizing with a 25-year framework, that you have time to make this work, and to give yourself some grace along the way.
Yes, well said. So, what is your one piece of advice to other business owners?
Be kind to yourself.
Oh, I love
Um, recognize that you're going to make some mistakes. Hopefully, they're not very expensive mistakes for the business. But as I look back, like I said, I'm in finishing up my 16th year and running this business. I look back and, yeah, I mean, I took some risks, and sometimes you have to take some risks with a business. Some of them haven't worked out great, not, some not so well. But I think we have to realize that's part of the learning, right?
it.
We have to fail to some extent in order to
Absolutely.
succeed. And
Yes.
what's crucial in that moment, I think, is that we learn from it, right? That we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again, as we grow and we develop. So I'm a big believer in being kind to oneself, which is something I've learned over time that I need to do as a.
Yeah. So, what is a book or podcast that you're reading or listening to right now?
Yeah, so we mentioned Dr. Benjamin Hardy earlier as a co-author for three different books that
Mhm.
he co-wrote with Dan Sullivan, the head of Strategic Coach. We talked about who, not how, the gap and the gain. And the third book is also one that your listeners might want to also take a look at. It's 10x is easier than 2x, which is
Yes.
all about the fact of when we think bigger, it's actually a lot easier to think bigger than to think, incrementally and exponentially rather than incrementally, which is another really fine book in thinking about how to grow your business in an exponential way.
Yes.
But Dr.
Yes.
Benjamin Hardy, I've through reading those three books, have gained, just an appreciation for what he's really leading in terms of thinking about intentional transformation. And another book he wrote without Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach was Be Your Future Self Now. And that's one I just recently read. And I think it's really important to recognize that what power you have as an
Mm,
individual when you're really focused on
yeah,
being intentional in transforming not only yourself, but also in the case of business owners, your business as well. Be Your
absolutely.
Future Self Now is, I think, a really incredibly important book in that regard. I'm very much a continuous development kind of person, particularly around personal growth.
Mm,
And I think it would really speak to those who also have the same feeling about it. Um,
yes.
from a so Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. In terms of podcasts, one that started relatively recently that I've been really tuned in on is called Coaching Collaboration, and it's brought on by a partnership between Strategic Coach and the folks at over at EOS, so Entrepreneurial Operating System. If your listeners are not familiar with it, I definitely would encourage folks to take a look at EOS as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to hire a what they call an implementer to help you with that. You could start by utilizing the concepts in the book. Their primary book that talks about all the different facets of EOS. It's called Traction,
Yes.
and it's by Geo Wickman. Uh, that's it's a really fine organization. It's not been around as long as Strategic Coach, but they partner on different things. And the thing that is, with Strategic Coach, it's all about the entrepreneur, developing the entrepreneur, coaching them up, if you will. Um, and the outcome of working with strategic coaches to develop what they call a self-managing company, right? So you can be away and the everyday operations continue to roll without you.
Yeah.
EMS is a system, operating system for the business that you can plug into that helps your business grow. And
Yes.
so they do complement one another really well. And I've been able to implement aspects of EOS into the business, and it's been very helpful along the way.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think that I think that podcast is something that people might want to check out.
This is excellent. Thank you for sharing. So, EOS is actually a small component of what Action Coach also is, and we've been around for 32 years as well. And so, having that subset as part of your coaching and reestablishing the rocks and the goals and everything that EOS coaches as well is very instrumental within that coaching journey because then you got a holistic approach to really getting your business to another place that, of course, works without you. So, before we get to the final question of the day, Dennis, how can people get a hold of you and learn more about clarity?
Yeah, so I usually suggest people check out the website first. which is clarity-us.com. You can certainly check out my LinkedIn if you want to learn a little bit more about me or some of the posts we do on social media. It's just obviously www.linkedin.com/in/Dennis Devlin forward slash. Or they can certainly call if they want to engage in conversation. The business's number is 513-448-4170.
Awesome. And thank you. So, guys, make sure that you check him out, learn more about Clarity, because he's also had some really great nuggets along the way today. So, Dennis, what is most inspiring to you today?
Well, I look to models. I look to people I can model my business journey, adventure. People who've been successful in business. Um, Try to model some of my behavior around that to the extent I can. So I usually try to be inspired by those who've been successful in business. And like I said, model my behavior and mindset. First of all, my mind
Yes.
and my behavior to what they've been able to incorporate. So, big fan of reading, learning from others who have paved a way.
Yes.
They've set a pathway, and the more you enable yourself to embrace that, I think is to your benefit.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed hearing your story and getting to know you and the business more. So, thank you for sharing.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Also, I just encourage all of you who are watching, save this show, come back to it, watch it again and again, because Dennis did have some great nuggets along the way as far as insights into business. So, Dennis, thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate you.
Again, thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
I had so much fun too. So, don't forget to like and subscribe because you want to get notifications every time we have a similar conversation like this one drop. And thanks to all of you who joined today. And please go out, make it a great day. Plan out that day, get some thinking time within there so you can focus and even create some of those buffers. So we really appreciate you, Dennis, and thank you. Have an amazing week.
Same to you.